So in my previous video, there were some people commenting saying that, you're not going to convince people. I had this asshole who came in and said, you're not going to convince people of white supremacy over libertarianism. Libertarianism is much more marketable than white supremacy. So I don't know, like he's just crap falling out of his mouth, like, oh, white supremacy. Like, what the fuck is that? Like I have never met a single quote unquote white supremacist ever on forums first off, what is he? Is it prescriptive, descriptive? What this asshole is not recognizing is that white supremacy isn't a real thing. It's not something anyone calls themselves, and it's not someone anyone is, secretly or otherwise. Okay, so just take the white supremacy and shove it up your ass. Okay, now what he was saying is saying that let's talk about what's really being talked about here. Racial separatism in interracial states and other states, right? We're talking about omniseparatism is what I advocate. On my map, there's explicit racial states, but there's also non-racial states. Okay, and you can have more than just what I put there. I have, the more the merrier. And what he's saying is libertarianism is more marketable. Well, no, you dumbass. First off, we've seen libertarianism. Libertarianism has had quite a shot. It's not gaining traction, and it's going against the inherently socialistic nature of the United States, right? People talk about fascism as a grassroots movement, and it is, but libertarianism is not, okay? Because people in their daily lives are not libertarian. People just by nature are not libertarian. Okay, they're just not. Now you can explain to them, well, primary unit, socialism works on this scale, but not on this scale, and that's true, but that's complicated, right? And you have to tell them stuff. You have to explain, comparative advantage, here's the curves and stuff. And while you're doing all this complicated stuff, just trying to teach them, you have a student who's resisting what you're trying to teach them, and you have other people who are teaching them different things. Other people who are better funded, and they have, more importantly than the better funding, is that they have the universities. They are the universities. They got the cathedrals. They got all the, they got status. They got rank. You don't. You're toast. Okay. And for people who have a highly authoritarian view of knowledge, you're not going to get at them at all, right? So, and when you're doing something like, when you're in, I guess, the field, for lack of a better phrase, things get really simple really quick, okay? And if you got some really complicated ideas, you got some fancy reasoning, you're gonna get your ass kicked, right? Okay? If you don't simplify it, your opponents are gonna simplify it for you. Okay, now, I'm, yeah, it shouldn't be this way. Okay, it shouldn't be this way. Got it. I don't say it should be this way. All right, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's how it is. Okay, this is a descriptive claim, not a prescriptive claim. And you can sit here and complain about it all you want, but where does that get us? That gets us nowhere. Okay, nowhere. So, you want to advance. Well, I saw a poll somewhere, when asked whether or not they would rather have lower taxes and bigger government, or lower taxes and less government, or higher taxes and bigger government, something around 79% of Hispanics support higher taxes and bigger government. So, what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do to fix that? What are you going to do? You're going to go preach to all the Hispanics? You're going to get all your libertarian friends all, marching down, I guess, into New Mexico, and into Arizona, into Southern California, into half of Texas, and start preaching them, South Florida, and start preaching them? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to preach to the mestizos about the blessings of liberty? Huh? And when you preach to them, is that going to convince them? How many of them are going to be convinced? Right? And when you do that, you're going to have to convince them. You're going to have to make a whole bunch of complicated arguments. Okay, you're going to be arguing against the counter authority. You're going to be arguing against the universities, and you're going to be arguing against their I guess you could call it their tribal leaders, right? You're going to have to argue against the leaders amongst those mestizo people who tell them a bunch of ass crap about big government good, libertarianism is white. You're going to have to argue against. You're going to have to go against that. I guess their native defenses against your ideas, and you're going to have to argue against the universities as well, who are going to be against you. All right, you're not going to win. You're going to pick off a few of them, but those few that you pick off probably would have drifted towards libertarianism anyway. Okay, that is, as sad as that sounds, yeah, that's probably the case. So yeah, you're not going to win some general struggle for libertarianism. You're just not. Okay, so omniseparatism is simpler, right? For me, I look at that 79% of mestizos support bigger government and higher taxes. Okay, fine. All I have to do with them is say, okay, can I leave, right? I don't have to convince them. Now, I do have to convince them that I should be able to leave, right? And I don't mean to downplay that. That is a difficult thing to do. You have to convince people of leaving, all right? But the arguments for that are simpler, right? You can point at the Soviet Union. They could say, well, you shouldn't leave because it's not legal. Well, it wasn't legal for Ukraine to leave the Soviet Union, right? All these countries that currently exist in the former Soviet Union are all quote unquote illegal by that logic. The United States illegally seceded from Britain. Okay, stupid, right? It's a dumb argument. So, and it's very simple to respond to, right? Soviet Union, the United States origins was illegal secession. So shut up. And that's really, I think, all that there is. I mean, they could say, well, racism and slavery. Well, the country that I'm talking about is going to be nothing but white people. Okay. Also, we support secession for the Aztlan people. Right? We can unify with them. We support secession for New Africa. All right. We support the super duper pooper progressive unions of America. Right. If they want to secede and form their country from a cluster of states, probably in the Northeast. And the rump state of the United States, right? Or we'll have the super duper pooper conservative whatever place, Republican States of America. So really, when you argue for omniseparatism, the opponents need to argue against these other countries forming, and moreover, they have to argue. Most likely, they're going to have to argue against a country that best represents their own views, right? Some super duper progressive asshole, is going to have to argue against super duper progressive stand. And if they want to support that, but they're going to oppose New Europe, well, they're being blatant, obvious hypocrites, right? And they're being hypocrites in a way that the asses of the masses can see, right? Because the asses of the masses are stupid. And these arguments for omniseparatism, they're simple, right? Soviet Union, the U.S. was born from secession, okay? And if anyone supports and if you argue against it, you're arguing against a state that best conforms to your interests, right? You're arguing against a place for you. And so really, when a country has a bunch of people who don't support the current arrangement, I mean, no individual segment, no individual nation within the United States supports the current government, right? It's just a gagglefuck, right? And also, another advantage I have is those mestizos, that 79% support higher taxes and bigger government, like the libertarian is going to have to take that head on, right? They're going to have to battle against that. If you're an omniseparatist, you don't have to battle against that. You can be, it's like a judo guy, they punch that way, you grab their arm and pull them that way. You say, okay, you want bigger government and higher taxes? Fine, I'll pull you that way. You can have that in Aztlan. right? You can have that in your country. Here, let's figure out the boundaries on the map. I put up this little map here on this video. I don't view it as like some final super, well-informed thing. It's just a starting point. You got to start somewhere. You got to start the discussion somewhere. I give New Europe, you see New Europe in green in the northwest. It's a big area. It's a big chunk, but it's an empty chunk. Right, it's empty. It has may have a lot of resources, but actually not. I mean, all the oil from North and South Dakota, that's covered up by other countries. So I'm not even asking for that oil shale deposit there. It's just a whole bunch of empty land and a little strip in southern Oregon along the coast to have access to the Pacific. That's really it, right? It's a big area, but it's really, in terms of population or extant industry, it's not very well developed. We're not really taking over anything, really. Okay. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. Omniseparatism, it's simpler. Okay. Now you can make charges of racism with omniseparatism, but the problem is that it's like, okay, whatever. But you know what? Part of the omniseparatists we got the Aztlan people, we got the mestizo separatists, we got the black nationalist separatists as well. So sure, you could say all these groups are racist, but it's a multiracial group. It's a multi-ideological group. Certainly we can get some, radical, like the Vermont Free Republic, the Socialist Republic of Vermont people. They could come in. Oh look, now we have white liberal social democrat people as well. I mean, it's like from a standpoint of a political movement, okay, you don't need to get these people to agree, except that partition is a good thing, and then at the end of the day, the details of the partition. Which I don't mean to say that that's a super easy thing to do. It's certainly going to be a very difficult thing to do, okay? But at least it has a fighting chance. Going around trying to convince everybody of your idea, that's ass-fail, and that's not going to work, and that's the path libertarianism is going down. Moreover, let's say you call the omniseparatist movement racist. Well, so what? Right? You're going to have white land here, black land here, ass land here, right? There's no mixing, there's no oppression, right? If you want to go into a non-racial state, well, most of the United States is going to be multiracial. So there you go. There's no real grounds for this crap. I mean, you could say racist, but it's not. It lacks teeth, right? It's not aggression, it's not hatred or anything, and it's not hidden, right? There's nothing hidden. There's no, your imagination is not drawing stupid secret conclusions. Whereas with libertarianism, I think the charge of racism is actually a bit more powerful, right? Because they're not open about what it is they're for, and so people draw all sorts of stupid conclusions and draw sorts of stupid... Well, I'm not going to vote for the white male nationalist thing. With omniseparatism, I'm not asking them to vote for the white male nationalist oppressor thing, right? What I'm asking them to vote for is an allowance for us to get out. That's it. I'm not asking them to vote for me. I'm not asking them to tolerate me. I'm not asking people to even like me. Right? Whereas libertarians, they're trying to get people to not only like not them, but to like their ideas, but to actually like them more than the ideas of other parties and support them first and foremost, right? Omniseparatism, we don't need to even get close to that. We just have to say, let us leave, right? Do you see how that's a lot easier, right? If libertarians want a chance, right, what they need to do is they need to try to get a spot on the map, right, for the partition of the United States and support an omniseparatist movement, right? Stop with this crap about trying to change the United States overall in total on this national scale politics. You're going to get your ass kicked. You're not going to win, all right? So that's all I have to say here. A bit of a rant, but I think it's pretty clear that omniseparatism is the only way to go.